Love in the Moonlight, Reset, and Shine have this one central thing in common, and that is either being a Lakorn BL or starring Lakorn actors in said BL. In any case, Lakorn style or soap opera style BLs has been, I guess, some of my favorite BL properties to come out of this year. And considering that I've been going through recently a very traumatic and very depressing BL slump, this is very important to me. So I wanted to make this podcast dedicated to talking about these three shows and the star power and quality and chemistry and everything gorgeous about these shows that have continued to draw me in. Hi, I am Monique. I am the host of Off by Purple Art podcast, where I talk to you about K-dramas, C-dramas, BTS, and so much more. And the so much more includes BLs, which kind of go into multiple different categories. They could be technically a C-drama, a K-drama, a Thai drama, or any other region type of drama. In any case, I really wanted to focus on Lakorns, and particularly a new BL Lakorn that has been airing right now, which is Love in the Moonlight, that stars Pearl, which is a gorgeous name, by the way, and Peak, who play the main characters. I believe you can actually watch a lot of this show on YouTube. I think View as well is like the official platform where this is, and I have seen a little bit of buzz about the show, but I wanted a little bit more buzz. But I think in general, the Lakorn style, the overdramatic soap opera, melodramatic turn of some of the BLs that I've been watching as of late that have resonated with me really well, have kind of kept me in the BL loop, because I'll be honest with you, a lot of BLs as of late I've kind of dropped off or I've put on hold because I'm not currently in a headspace to fully, I guess, watch and enjoy the programming. But for some reason, the three shows I'm going to talk about, in particular Love in the Moonlight, have kind of permeated my barriers, and I'm going in full throttle with them. I think Reset really set the tone for me this year. I don't care what anybody says about Reset. Reset, starring Peter Pan and the lovely Pond, was one of my favorites this year. I think it pretty much redefined romance for me, even if there was questionable acting choices from some of the side characters in this show, but it fully leaned into its Lakorn style process. And I really enjoyed the overdramaticness of it, even like the music that would just be glaringly loud in scenes where probably it wasn't needed, but I just like the whole theatrics of it all. And also, honestly, I thought Peter Pan and Pond had phenomenal chemistry, and I bought into their romance hook, line, and sinker. And I really don't care if no one else agrees with me on that. To me, it's going to be one of my favorite BLs this year, and it's going to most likely be a very short list. But I loved it. I loved the romance of it, and I think the chemistry really was heightened with the fact that it was filmed with a Lakorn feel to it. I think the whole fantasy element of it being like a time travel show and having these two lovers kind of reconnect and do things right the second time around, like a second chance romance, but kind of putting all the pieces together and realizing that it's not so much of the tragic circumstances in the first life that really mattered. It was the choices they made then on forward to reconnect and kind of complete this soul tie, this red string romance, just being destined to be together. But in the first life, it just couldn't work out. But through just love and persistence, it all works out. And I really think that Pond and Peter Pan really created something special with it. And I've rewatched many scenes, and just some of the more gentle, affectionate scenes, not like the hardcore NC stuff, even though I think the NC stuff was pretty smoking, and they just had wonderful chemistry. They just look great together. I don't know what to tell you. But I think overall it was an enjoyable journey for me, and it was one of the few that I actually was able to stay tuned all the way through. So there's that. Shine just recently ended. This is a BOC production, and it starred to my surprise, a couple of Lakorn actors that I wasn't very familiar with, Sun and Euro, who played Lurt and Naran in Shine. Now, not going into heavy spoilers, but I'm sure if you're at even just a slightest bit aware of Shine, then you probably would know from like the trailers, a lot of the principal photography, and a lot of the press that there was going to be an element of doomed yaoi type romance in it. And I even aptly named one of my podcast episodes just talking about Shine, essentially that it's a doomed yaoi at its finest. And yeah, there was a lot of doom and gloom in episode 8. Let me tell you, there was some stuff I did not agree with the way it was written in the show, but ultimately I think Sun and Euro really had that kind of grown-up type chemistry that I've been really thirsting for. Maybe thirsting is a strong word. Hold up. But you know, I want like an adult romance that I can really sink my teeth into, with two men that, you know, have just not only the fiery chemistry, but they also have their own beliefs, their own moral compass, and they're not afraid to butt heads with one another. And I think that was what drew me into this second couple so much. And I know that the focus of Shine was on Mile and Apple's characters, and that is absolutely fine because I love Mile and I love Apple, and seeing them in any form is good for me. I will say though that Sun and Euro really did shine, for lack of a better word, in this show, and it's because of how much they were able to infuse in these characters who are diametrically on opposing ends of political spectrums, and their romance, it was just star-crossed at its absolute best. I adored their chemistry. Their chemistry was so electrifying, so fiery, and it's probably going to be one of those once in a, you know, lightning in a bottle situations, because I don't think the actors are going to work together again, and I don't think it has anything to do with their personal relationship. They seem to get along pretty well. I was watching a lot of like the behind the scenes stuff and like the cast, you know, wrap up party type videos, and they seem to get along really nicely, and Euro just seems to be a trip in the best way possible. But I think it was just going to be like a one-time deal, which is a shame, but c'est la vie. You know, actors need to expand, and I have no problems with actors switching up partners and branching off into different genres. I think it's actually healthy for development of actors as well. Even though I do have my biases, I do have my favorite pairings, but you know, I can let go. You know, I can be adult about it sometimes. But I really loved what they're able to bring these characters, and just the maturity of it. It's just like grown folk business type thing. So I really loved the energy they brought into Shine, and I think they took a lot of that Lakorn background and were able to really bring about like a heightened performance. They just kind of set themselves apart, and I think that's why so many fans of Shine were so enraptured by the two of them and of the characters of Lurt and Naran. And honestly, it just has every type of beat that I would love in like a romance story. Two people that love literature, two people that are sending each other secret coordinates and secret locations, meeting up, having a torrid affair, being extraordinarily passionate and explosive, but knowing that there was going to be an end goal. Like there was going to be a time where, you know, they would have to wake up from the dreamscape that they're in. But it was just a gorgeous journey throughout the majority of the show, and I just was locked into the tension a lot. Even though Shine wasn't necessarily Lakorn, but going into an actual BL that's airing right now that is Lakorn is Love in the Moonlight. And as I said, it stars Peak and Pearl, which I love the name Pearl, and they are the title characters. Just going by the synopsis that I have here, it's based in the 60s. Another show that has a lot of political undertones in it as well. And we have the main character who is Prince Sen Kiao, and he was sent to Bangkok to be in an arranged marriage with some family friends, and it's essentially helped transfer his and his family's assets to this girl and her family, so that those assets could be protected by a very unscrupulous colonel, and he's basically hunting down these rich, prominent royal families. So they make a run for it. He sets himself up in Bangkok to marry this girl, to marry into this family. And there is a very irritating cousin that is circling around this girl that he's set to marry, and he seems inclined to butting his nose into Prince Senkao's business at every stop and turn. And I guess this banter and this sort of, not even sort of, they are starting off as enemies to lovers, like full stop. They are enemies at the beginning. They do not like each other. They butt heads and they're like oil and water. But of course, slowly they start to see one another in a different light, and that turns from scorn and enemies to more accepting friends, perhaps, who might have more in common than they realize at first, to lovers. And of course, because we are in the 60s in this show, there's going to be a lot of barriers to them getting together. Never minding the prince's responsibilities to his family and his soon-to-be fiancé. So there is a lot to bite off and chew in Love in the Moonlight. I'm 4 episodes in. I really do like the chemistry between the leads. I actually really love the musical component. The musical component was what actually got me into giving the show a shot, because both characters are musically inclined. And in particular, the troublesome cousin, who I believe his name is Sarin in the show, played by Pearl. And he is in a band, and they have this really great jazzy club, and I love the owner of the club. She is like such a babe. She's such a boss babe, but I mean that not in derogatory. I mean that in the most glowing of terms. And she has this friendship with the band that this lead character Sarin is in, and I love the backdrop of him being able to play instruments. And I love that the Prince Senkao, who has run to Bangkok to be in this arranged marriage for the protection of his assets, I love that he plays this really gorgeous flute or wind instrument of some sort, and that's kind of like their first point of connection as well. There are the annoying villainous characters, and a lot of the villainous characters are within the family, and this is kind of a staple in soap operas regardless of the region. There's always going to be mustache twirling type villains who are very annoying, but there is a lot, and I mean a lot, of villains in this show. And because of the time period as well, homophobia is to be expected, and unfortunately you see even in not just like the trailers for the show, but even like in the opening credits and the outro for the show, you see a lot of flashes to future episodes. So, and there is going to be a lot of assault and like physical violence towards these two characters because of this, bubbling love that's coming in between them, especially with the prince character and his father and his very oppressive reign on him. And he's got like a really tight grip on him, and he has like actual servants that are spying on him, making sure that he's sticking to the program. And you could just tell he is so isolated. He is just so oppressed, and there's just so much of him wants to come out. And he's fully aware of his sexuality, and he's very much in touch with it. And it's really unfortunate to see just how much that colors his perception of what he can and cannot do, which is why I think even though he butt heads with Sarin's character so much, Sarin in the end will be a good thing for him. And I do think that their love will prevail against all. But I will say the villains are very annoying. The prince's uncle in particular is supposed to be, I think, sort of comic relief, but he is like a major foil in the show, and he's already getting on my last nerve because the man is like a fucking GPS. Like every single place that the prince character goes to, somehow his uncle just somehow pops up, either like just like boink, like just like that. It's just so infuriating. But there is just so many elements of the show that I really do enjoy. If I'm going into spoilers, please mind them, just be aware. For episode 4 in particular, as much as I love the pairing, I think Sauron did something that I really did not like. He threw a very tragic backstory back in the prince's face because the prince became very vulnerable to him. Sauron finds out from the prince that his mom has passed away, and that's where a lot of his like depression and I think his, I guess, wall that he's built up comes from, along with just the oppressive reign that his father continues to, suffocate him with. And he admits to this character that, his mom had passed away, or he, I think, inadvertently said something while he was sick and in a daze and wasn't really conscious of what he's saying. And Sauron happened to be in earshot of this. I'm kind of skewing the details here. But in any case, he ends up finding out that his mom had passed away, and because the character doesn't really understand at this point that he's falling in love with the prince, he kind of gets jealous and assumes that he's in like an extramarital affair with another woman who happens to be a drop dead gorgeous actress, but they're just besties, nothing sordid of the sort. But he kind of throws it in his face, saying like, you're a really selfish character. My cousin that you're about to marry, she's a great gal. I don't care that this is supposed to be like an arranged marriage that's just for securing of assets, which technically is what marriage is. Like, let's be real. Anyway, but he's like, she's a really great gal, and she's really in love with you, and you're just, here, dancing around with other women, and now here you are leaving this woman's house, and it looks really sus, and you're sus. You're really irresponsible. Both you and your father are selfish. This is why your mom left you, which is a horrible, horrible thing. Don't ever do that to somebody. I know this is a fictional show, but don't ever throw someone's dead parent in their face, because you deserve to get mollywopped for it. You deserve to get your lights knocked the fuck out of you, okay? And that's what this character did, and it really pissed me off. But aside that, I really do enjoy this show. And I love the costuming of it. God, if I could have my entire wardrobe be what's in this show, oh my God, I love the dresses. I love vintage dresses so much. I love A-line dresses. I love flapper dresses. I love vintage so much. So the costuming of the show for me is already like a 10. I love the music. I love the club. I love that the club is like one of the safe places and safe havens for the queer and the queer coded characters within the show. And I really do like the two leads. I think they look magnificent together, and I think the chemistry is already smoldering. So I can only imagine once the two of them actually get their heads out of their asses, especially Sauron, because he's doing a little bit too damn much, at least from what I thought in episode 4. But I love it. I love the Lakorn style of it. The villains are irritating, of course. It's over the top, but it's kind of supposed to be, so I'm with it. No, I am not a big fan of seeing physical violence against characters in general, but especially due to homophobia. So that part is going to be uncomfortable. So yeah, content warnings for those who are considering watching the show. But I do think the show has a lot of charm to it, and I'm already endeared by it 4 episodes in. So there is that. Let me know your thoughts. How do you feel about Lakorn style BLs? I know there's a lot in like the BL fandom that a lot of people love. I know To Sir with Love is a big one that a lot of people love, but I don't know if that was necessarily a BL. That was, I think, more of like a family drama that just happened to center around a BL couple, but I don't know if it was specifically marketed as like a Lakorn BL, but I could be mistaken. Feel free to correct me. But just let me know your thoughts in general. If you're watching the YouTube form of this podcast, if you are listening and watching via Spotify or Apple Podcasts as well, I love you. I appreciate y'all so damn much. Please leave your commentary there as well if the spirit moves you. And until the next video.